So about a year after From Software announced that they were working on Shadow of the Erdtree, in a single tweet, we finally got a trailer about the DLC and a release date to boot of June 21st, 2024. We also got some interviews with the main man himself, Miyazaki, about some of the details he was willing to share about Shadow of the Erdtree. I want to do a trailer breakdown and some lore analysis, but when it comes to Elden Ring, talking about the lore is really difficult for me. For any one point you bring up, it feels like you have to explain 10 other things in order to put that one thing into context, but I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. I want this video to be me putting my 2 cents out there, but also creating a conversation. So any questions you hear me ask about certain things, let me know what you think about it in the comments. A lot of this was not thought up in a vacuum, as I'm on Twitter a lot and I do follow a lot of Souls creators. So if I forget to cite something, that's just it. Me forgetting. I'm not trying to claim anything as my own. And this is all for fun. I'm just really excited about the new content around one of my favorite games of all time. So let's take a look at the trailer and see what we were shown. The trailer starts with a low angle shot of the boss arena where we fight Mohg. There's a person standing there wearing some sort of dress or a cloak that we have not seen in the base game. The white and black are very unique. Then a close-up on the cocoon housing the body of Mikalel. We hear a voice saying, "Pure and radiant, he wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying." I know that there's zero connection here, but when I heard shrive clean, I couldn't help but think of Shriving Stone from Dark Souls 3. And when I looked up the Shriving Stone item, it kind of looks like Mikalel's cocoon a little, but this is unrelated. It's unclear who's talking. This person talking about Mikalel wielding love and nothing being more terrifying tracks with what we have seen mention of Mikalel in the base game. We then see the player Tarnished hurtling about Torrent down a road. I saw a Vadi tweet that you can see little footprints in the road. The first thing that stood out to me was one of these towers that look identical to the 4 belfries we can see in Liurnia, so there could be some connection here. I'm not going to try to theorize on every castle or building in this shot, as they all look very unique to the Land of Shadow, but this one shot is so densely packed with points of interest. Miyazaki said the DLC area would be roughly the size of Limgrave, but seeing how much density in the level design, I could see it being about the same size, but also being about 3 times the amount of content in this area. In the next shot, we get a scene very reminiscent of the picture from the DLC announcement, with the archways and spirit gravestones. Also, we can see what looks like one of the map housings. I'm not really sure what to call these. You know, the places that you find the maps in the lands between. So it's possible that they're keeping the same map finding mechanic from the base game. We get a quick glimpse of a town that has several pieces of large cloth draped over the buildings, and this will show up again as a running motif in the trailer. The next shot is a reveal of more of the landscape, but on the foreground, it looks like where the player character was running in the first shot. We're just at an elevated position. We get a shot of the Erdtree, which looks like it has another tree wrapped around it. Also, what appears to be some kind of veil draping down from the top of the tree. It's very reminiscent to the veil in Marika's bedchamber, and also, I have heard that it's possible that this is linked to the concealing veil. What looks like the closest building to the Erdtree, or the Shadow Tree, I've heard theories that the half-circle building under the tree could have housed a basin that was collecting the golden sap from the tree. But to me, it looks more like a tree brace than anything. Kind of how the Halleck tree has a brace, or how you would brace a tree in the real world. In the next shot, we see a knight. Given where he is standing with the spectral tombstones and the Erdtree, it kind of looks like this knight would be from the first shot of the Land of Shadow. The knight is in front of a very unique looking object. It kind of looks like a great rune, but it's incomplete. This could also be left by Mikalel as a way of saying, "I've been here," or maybe the Land of Shadow's version of a site of grace. It looks like a crescent moon with a star. Moon and star imagery are usually reserved for scholars of the Academy, and given that there's an Academy-looking NPC coming up, this could be some form of sorcery and not Mikalel, but given that it's golden color, it leads me to believe that it's from the Empyrean. We get another NPC sporting a very Roman or Greek style armor set. I like the sides of the helmet, kind of look like Princess Leia buns, but it's probably closer to goat horns than anything. The NPC is resting on a very cool looking greatsword. The hilt looks similar to that of Saint Trina's torch design, but the way that the NPC is standing also reminds me of how we find Bernal in Volcano Manor. We get another voice line. In that forsaken place, blood must spill. Blood of your fellows, the Erdtree faithful. It is unclear who is talking yet again, or what they are referring to, but anytime that there is mention of spilling blood of our fellows, it's usually tied to PvP in some fashion. This is not confirming covenants, but the dialogue is reminiscent of Bloody Fingers and Recusants. So I want to assume that there is either a new PvP quote-unquote covenant, or some kind of PvP zone where we must do combat online. While this voiceover is going on, we get what looks like not Havel pot dad tending to a very ornate looking pot. It doesn't quite look exactly like the giant pot we'll see the Tarnished player throwing later, however, so maybe it's just this fella's hobby or something. In the background, we see several of these spiraling pillars that can be found all throughout the trailer, clearly of significance to the Land of Shadows. On the structure behind him, we could see a ton of reliefs all over this door-like entrance. I hope we could get his armor. I love that the leg coverings look like armor out of antiquity. Next, we have a being asleep in a purple haze. We could see St. Trina lilies and other flora surrounding the character. More masks. There's so many masks in Elden Ring, and this is another one to add to the pile. But the mask itself is meant to look asleep, so it makes me think that this is some kind of acolyte of St. Trina or some kind of armor piece related to St. Trina. Then we get a really great shot of an area similar to Raya Lucaria. With the inclusions of the 4 belfry-like towers, it's not surprising some sect of glintstone sorcery would be located here. Note the bird cages and the glintstone lanterns. This character doesn't look exactly like the inverted statue being, but the reliefs around his neck kinda do, making a stronger link between this person and Raya Lucaria. Moving on, we get a really striking scene of a darkened forest with a manor castle obscured by some dark fog. This looks like something out of Sleepy Hollow, and I'm all for it. The rays of light peeking through the branches makes me think that this area is in some sort of crevasse, or almost underground area. We can see the Tarnished sporting a new chest piece that looks like 2 bird wings made out of feathers, and the murky water has some gold yellow tint to it. It kind of looks like Deathblight, but we haven't seen it in water before, so this could be a new element altogether. Also, there's what looks to be birds perched in the water in front of the Tarnished. Next, we see one of my favorite bits from the DLC trailer, this painting. In it, we see a very disheveled looking old man with darkened eyes and a look of concern. The brooch is also repeated on the top of the picture frame that the painting is housed in. We see a woman standing beside the elderly looking man, resting one hand on his shoulder and the other on her stomach in a gesture that she is with child. Her face is being obscured, which makes me think that this is Marika, but she appears to have dark hair, so we can't say for certain that this is in fact Marika, as she is always portrayed with blonde hair. What appears to be blonde hair spiraling down from the front looks more like ornamentation we'll see later on in the Omen Lions arena, so this could just be part of the shawl she's wearing. I would love to be able to see more detail of the brooch clasping this old man's cloak together. It appears to have at least 1 or 3 eyes in it. It also looks as if his hands are wrapped, so maybe an injury or denote that he works with his hands in some capacity. But we'll see more of him later. Next, we get a very quick shot of the Tarnished in an underground area. It looks very similar to the underground caves where you find the Shamshir, the pillars holding up the rocks. These suspended jars are interesting. We'll be able to jump on them or interact with them in some kind of way. Then we get a striking image of a Tarnished character making their way up a huge metal device. You can see a swirling design going up the pipe and what looks like a fan or turbine that is either sucking lava up or feeding it down. It could be used to transport the liquid hot magma to a forge or some kind of industry facility. Always thought it was interesting that in Elden Ring we have massive huge divine towers, Lindell, all these otherworldly large constructions, and you think, where do they get the materials for all this? Anyway, moving on. Next we get an impressive shot of a new castle. There's a path leading up to the castle with those same spiral pillars we saw earlier. a tall staircase, and then a structure that not Havel Potdad was standing in front of, with the same reliefs. But since where he was standing was missing the entire castle, I think that the Land of Shadow has these posted up in several locations around the land as some kind of cultural or historical significance. The castle looks very tightly packed, ramparts and towers filling the inner walls, but if you look all the way up at the top, you can see two structures that look like they're crumbling, and it looks like they're crumbling upwards, very much like Farum Azula. It also looks like there may be an NPC standing outside the gate, kind of like Gostock at Stormvale Castle. We get another voice line. They were never saints. They just happened to be on the losing side of a war, a land purged in an unsung battle. So what this voice line tells us is that there was a battle that purged the land, but who is talking and who they are referring to as saints? A group of soldiers, demigods. All this tells us is that there was a war, the land was purged, and a group who is seen or sees themselves as saints. And this person disagrees. Next up, Burning Man. Not too much to say about this except how cool it is, but there looks like there are two faces on either one of this thing's thighs that have red beards. Maybe fire giants? That is how it's conjuring the flame. This thing also appears in Berserk, yet another reference to add to the list. Then we get this leech-like creature who is grabbing the player character, very similar to how the worm faces grab the player and stuff their head into their mouth and spit them out for an attack. I don't know really what to make of this thing, to be honest. It has humanoid-like features, but there isn't enough to go on from just a single shot to come up with anything concrete, except maybe it was a person like the worm faces, but due to some exposure to something unique to the Land of Shadows had forced this transformation. Miyazaki did say in an IGN interview, and I quote, "There is a significant connection between these enemies, the way that they are, and the Land of Shadow. What connection that could be, we'll have to see." Now we're getting to the good stuff. Clearly, this Omen lion is a boss. It looks very similar to a lion dance, where several people hide under a cloth to manipulate a lion head in a very intricate dance. The coordination alone to pull off this illusion takes a tremendous amount of work. The lion head has two sets of teeth, much like the ancient dragons and dragonkin soldiers we see in the base game. This lion also has blonde hair, which is very interesting. The eyes are a color we have not seen in Elden Ring before. This is important because eye color plays a big part in the game. Dragon, frenzy, blood, ruined eyes, just to name a few. But I can't tell from the footage if these are real eyes or false ones, you know, so that the dancers under the cloth can see through the lion's head's eyes. We can see at minimum 2 people under the cloth. There could be more. We then see the lion head spewing some kind of dark fog attack, which kind of reminds me how Godric was able to use the grafted dragon head to spew fire at us. But it's also reminiscent to how the Omen we encounter can spew a black fog attack, although theirs has that tinge of vengeful spirits. So this might be something unique to the Land of Shadows. We then see the boss summoning golden lightning. In this shot, we can also see more pillars and the relief that we have seen pop up a few times by now. Also, in the archways, we can see this twisting design, which looks identical to the woman painted with the old man. I kind of want to say that this lion previous to being beheaded was the Mother America. Malekith is referred to as her half-brother. How the hell is he the half-brother? We do find demi-human queens all in the lands between, and the way reproducing works in Elden Ring, it isn't a stretch to say that Marika could be born this way. I mean, the lion has omen horns, and Marika birthed at least 2 omen children that we know of. We then see Mesmer, and we can assume that this is him speaking as well. "Mother, wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of light?" A quick side note, this is the only weapon-wielding boss we have seen in the game who's left-handed, or at the very least prefers to wield his weapon in his left hand. We see the red snakes intertwining around his body, which invokes the image of the depraved perfumer's robes. As he's walking forward, we see him conjure a black flame. This seems very significant, as there are many different types of fire in Elden Ring, and each have their own significance within the world. We have the yellow chaos flame, the orange-red flame of the giants, the flame of ruin, the purple flame of Saint Trina, the white-black flame of the godskin, and now this red-black flame, which makes me believe that Mesmer is closely tied to the godskin apostles. Red is associated with the Rune of Death, so perhaps before the Rune of Death was sealed away in the lands between, the black flame that the apostles used was reddish black instead of white black we see in game. Not only the blackness of his fire, but his overall appearance just screams Godskin apostle to me. The elongated limbs, pale skin, and sickly yellow serpent eye. But he only has one eye open when we first see him in the trailer. The one visible eye does have some kind of serpent-like appearance to it, more than the Dragon Communion afflicted eyes. In classic FromSoft style, this character has left far more questions than answers. Miyazaki does say in an interview that he is on the same level or importance as the other demigods. We'll come back to Mesmer. The next shot after Mesmer, we see the Tarnished using a new dual curved sword weapon with a unique moveset. The Tarnished is fighting some very humanoid looking creatures with blonde hair and omen horns. But their skin is very dark, like the Omen or the Draconian starter class. But they are wielding a torch that looks like the Candletree wooden shield, which states, thought to represent a superstitious prophecy of cardinal sin. The lit Candletree design was forbidden. But the Candletree also looks like the foreign object within the old man as he rips it out. Interestingly, on the shield icon we can see what looks like roots growing out of the bottom. So was the old man used as like a seed to grow a tree? I don't know. We can see 3 of the enemies getting close and attacking the Tarnished by blowing on the candlestick like we can use on the steel wire torch or St. Trina's torch. A quick aside, I think it's awesome to see more paired weapons coming back with a unique moveset. It gives me hope that I'll be able to use the dual Banished Knight Greatsword moveset. We then get another new weapon type, the throwing daggers that look a lot like Spectral Lance, leading me to believe that there's some kind of occult magic happening here. The buildings in this area are covered in more cloth like we saw before. The enemy charging looks spectral in nature, but is wielding an iron cleaver, which is usually wielded by the Misbegotten. I think this is the first weapon not carried by the Tarnished that have appeared in both the Land of Shadow and the Lands Between. Next we see the Tarnished casting an incantation, which has purple butterflies, and it looks like it's affecting several enemies at once. All these enemies are left-handed as well, and I can't place the daggers or short swords that they have. What effect this incantation is having, I don't know. It could be sleep due to the purple color, but we'll have to wait and see. This courtyard is interesting. The lion statues have omen horns, and this wisteria-looking tree can be seen in the omen lion fight, so maybe it's in the same castle. We then see the Tarnished sporting this new flurry of airborne kicks on a knight wielding a very heavy looking new twin blade. This looks like it could be a boss fight by the boss fog or before a boss fight, kind of how you encounter Moongrum as he defends the entrance to Renala. But since we see the Tarnished character using this twin blade later, maybe this is a boss that drops that weapon. The Tarnished is also sporting a new set of armor, which looks really cool. The hat kinda looks like Kung Lao from Mortal Kombat. The effect around the kicks are like the effect of Shadow Bait or Assassin's Approach from the Two Fingers Servants. So maybe instead of a whole new weapon class, this kick attack is an incantation or an Ash of War of some kind. I wish we got a clearer picture of the knight they are fighting. There's clearly a symbol on the knight's armor we can't quite make out, which is important because all the other factions that have knights have some kind of emblem on the armor that's identifying to them. We can make out some kind of banner in the back that does kind of look like Mesmer's icon from the pre-order, and we can see on the floor of his fight footage, and these long spears look like they could have been used for impaling, like Vlad the Impaler. So maybe this castle is controlled by or loyal to Mesmer. We then see a Tarnished sporting the lizard set yeeting a giant new pot at some enemies on a bridge. The enemies are sporting a new double-sided axe and look more Nordic. The bridge goes directly into a landmass. So this is going back to that density of level design. Off to the right we can see a castle wall. It's hard to tell from this one shot what exactly is over there, but it does look like a very big structure. Then we get to see a hostile NPC sporting some really dope looking armor and a new repeating crossbow. He is shooting perfumer bolts, so there is another Lands Between connection. It looks like the character has to plant themselves and they can't move while unleashing the volley of arrows. But I can't wait to get that thing. Also, the greatsword on their back looks new too, and kind of looks like the sword monuments we can see in the base game. And this is my personal favorite part of the DLC trailer, are the bear incantations. Oh, the fact that we had zero bear related anything from the base game, even though the rune bears are some of the hardest enemies to deal with, made me excited to see this. The character casting this has a talisman in their left hand and sporting some kind of new armor that has chains that kind of remind me of Nefeli Lu's champion set. The bear has a horn and red hair. Maybe a more primal version of the bear. Then we get a shot of a blue field of flowers with an amazing contrasted red dancer swarming the player character with constant attacks. This could be a boss. The area that they're fighting makes me think of the Ishin fight from Sekiro. The blades they're wielding are very interesting. It's hard to tell, but the tips look intertwined, like the Finger Slayer blade or Sacred Relic sword. Perhaps this character is related to the blue dancer we hear about who taught Millennia the mother-loving waterfowl dance. There's not too much going on here, but there are tombstones that show up all over the lands between, like Altus, the Misbegotten fight, and Castle Morn. And then we see what looks like either giant coffins or bows of a ship. We do see plenty of shipwrecks in the ocean, but these are on land. And the only explanations I can think of is that maybe there was a great storm that pushed them on land, so this area could be close to the ocean, or they fell from the sky. While these scenes are going on, we hear another NPC saying, "I presume you too are keen to know just what kind Mikalel is doing here." Again, it's unclear who is speaking, but sounds like he and the player character are both unaware of what exactly Mikalel is doing. Maybe a friendly NPC who's trying to figure out what Mikalel is doing in the Land of Shadow. Miyazaki confirmed we are not the only ones pursuing Mikalel and who are interested in his goings-ons. Friendly or hostile was still unclear from this. I read this as sort of just what kindness is he really doing here, implying if he's helping or hurting. We then see a knight riding an armored boar, wielding a very large lance that is casting gravity magic. The knight looks very protected in that armored saddle, so perhaps this will be a fight that focuses on mounted combat, as the boar's tusks and charging nature would make it hard to fight on foot, or we would have to engage in some kind of jousting. This looks very close to the tree, but we could be on one of those elevated plateaus we have seen, so the perspective here could be kind of skewed. I don't really know what to make of this hippo, rhino, lizard thing. It has very gold malformed teeth and a horn, and opens its mouth to attack like a hippo, but then does a Crucible-esque porcupine attack. We can see the Tarnished doing this also from an image on Bandai's website. Given Elden Ring's love for giant field enemies, I don't really think this is a boss, but more in common with those giant blood sniper lobsters. What's also interesting is that the barbs look similar to the old man's foreign object impaled and shoots projectiles out, kind of like the Erdtree avatars. After that, we see a pale skeletal rider on a horse that looks very unwell. The first time I saw this, I thought Albinoric, because the horse can't use its hind legs, like the older generation Albinorics. And the silver gray muck also makes me think of the Albinoric blood clot. But this just looks like a creature unique to this area. We could see the purple haze and trina lilies all over this cave. Its innards look very similar to those who live in death, but we need more information. To me, this is the most striking image of the entire trailer. This man on his knees, struggling to remove what looks like a branch of an Erdtree from his being. All his innards are gone, very much like the trolls and demi-humans. As he is struggling to remove this branch, we could see his head coming loose, or at least the top of his head. Like if he pulls out this branch completely, everything from his jaw up will be removed. The branch looks just like the candlesticks, and to me, this candlestick imagery can be seen in the Elden Ring itself. I want to speculate a little and say that this is just like Radagon's lattice work and all the demigods' great runes in the Elden Ring, or at least a part of the foundation of the Elden Ring. We then go toward the other part of the trailer, including Mesmer. We see him leap like a freak with his spear aloft and on fire, and I can't help but think of the Goldbreaker Asher wore on Marika's hammer. Mesmer then summons spears to jut out from the ground. This is very reminiscent to another Asha War, the Cleanrot Knight's Sacred Phalanx. When he summons his spear back into his hand, it makes the same sound when using fire incantations. When Mesmer grabs onto the Tarnished, it looks like the snake is coming out of Mesmer's body. How this relationship works, I don't know. But it wasn't until watching this footage more closely that I saw that the dual-headed snake had little black wings. In the center of the room, when Mesmer does his grab attack and starts to burn the Tarnished, we can see him standing on a symbol in the center of the room that is used in the pre-order bonus of Shadow of the Erdtree. We then see the Tarnished take flight with golden crucible wings while lifting the twin blade aloft, making me think that either this twin blade is a catalyst for casting incantations, or this is a unique Ash of War to one of these weapons being held. We hear Mesmer saying, "Those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death in the embrace of Mesmer's flame." Why? Why should we die in the embrace of Mesmer's flame? We didn't willingly give something up. So how is that cause for being sentenced to death? Is this the Erdtree's grace of gold or the Shadow Tree's grace of gold? We get another voice line. "Come now, touch the withered arm and travel to the realm of Shadow. I will not be far behind. May we meet again." Another disembodied NPC. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this was the first NPC we see in the trailer. Seems as if after defeating Mohg, this character will arrive. Based on how Mikalel's arm is in the lowered position, it assumes when the fight starts, leads me to believe that Mohg had to die in order for any Tarnished to follow into the Shadowland. The final shot is that of Mikalel, glowing gold. We of course do not see his face, much like his mother. And his hand is gesturing to the Shadow Tree as a pale white light is beaming from the top of the tree. And that's it. That's the whole 3-minute trailer. So, if you made it through the whole video, thanks for watching. And like I said, I wanted this to be more of a conversation more than me just telling you what's going on. I do have some thoughts for another video that I've already started scripting, going into more detail about singular characters that we do see. So like how I think the old guy is the old man we see in statue all through the lands between, Mesmer's origin, who Mikalel's promised lord is, and how the land of Shadow is in a pocket dimension like the round table hold. But until next time, goodbye.